Welcome to the Medical Affairs Dialogues. In this episode, we are going to really explore a very intriguing intersection again, AI and medical affairs. In this episode, we are going to debunk myths, and I promise you this will be a very enlightening and an engaging session. It is absolutely an honor and a pleasure to welcome our guest today. Our guest for this episode is Matt Lewis. Welcome to the episode, Matt.
Thank you so much, and thanks so much for having me here. And thanks to all the watchers, viewers, listeners, and thanks everyone for the time today. I'm so greatly appreciated.
Thank you. Um, Before we begin, I want to introduce you to my audience and my viewers. Matt has 25 years of life sciences experience. He specializes in using artificial intelligence and advanced analytics to enhance decision making processes. His expertise spans from oncology, hematology, neuropsychiatry, and rare disorders, contributing to the launch of over 60 treatments globally. As a co chair of the AI task force at the International Society for Medical Publication Professionals, he played a key role in developing a global roadmap on AI. Without any further delay, we want to start this episode. Thank you, Matt, for being here again. Our topic for today is merging artificial intelligence with medical affairs, full of hype or full of hope. Before we go any further, Matt, we always pause here and ask our guest to share their career journey. We want to know for our viewers and our audience, how did you navigate through such a stellar career? And what were the challenges that you faced while creating this career?
Oh, well, thank you so much again for having me, Bertali. I really appreciate it. And when you ask that question, I feel almost like I'm at the twilight of my career, but I definitely don't feel like that at all. I started, in life sciences about 27 years ago, actually in commercial analytics. I've been in medical affairs for 25. So, my first little kind of taste of the world was a little bit outside of medical affairs. But my time in commercial analytics was really helpful, actually, to kind of get a kind of bird's eye view of the challenges that large life sciences enterprises face when trying to kind of trade on and extract value from the larger ecosystem out in the world in terms of health plans and governments and payers and employers, and kind of what our interventions do for people that are challenged with different conditions out in the broader environment. And it helped me kind of flex my kind of other scientific muscles in terms of qualitative, quantitative skills, and helping to understand what people value out in the world. But my first role was as a medical science liaison, and I still very much remember those days with a very kind of special place in my heart. It was really so much fun and a great deal of enjoyment, kind of doing scientific exchange with some of the leading key opinion leaders and key experts in areas like metabolic bone disease and immunology and gastroenterology and the rest here in New York and New Jersey and around the world, top experts in their space, and was just really fortunate to be part of great teams, leading teams, and working to support projects and things like CME and investigator initiated studies and publications and launching a number of products into the marketplace. And eventually I got an offer I couldn't refuse to go work on the consulting and research side of the environment outside of the sponsor side. I had been at what became AbbVie and what was Boehringer Ingelheim for a number of years in medical affairs, and have been in strategy roles and advanced analytics roles, and most recently was chief artificial intelligence officer for Inizio. Now I'm leading my own shop, Elemental, which kind of merges artificial intelligence with lived experience to kind of solve for some perennial problems out in the space. So it's been a really great time these last 27 years, and I'm looking forward to the next 27.
Very excited to see you go through this journey, and we will be following you and very excited for your achievements. So yeah, let's dive into more deeper questions. We all know, right, like how AI has advanced in these 2 years, how AI has advanced in different aspects, and it has kind of become our life now in the last 2 years, the advancement that has happened. And we are bombarded with these kind of AI related questions and AI all around. I want to cut out that noise and directly ask you, what are some of the major challenges that you are either right now encountering or you anticipate you will or leaders like yourself will while integrating AI into medical affairs?
Yeah, I mean, this could be like a full day discussion, just this one topic, and I think the title of today's program is well kind of considered. Is it hype or is it hope? I think it's probably both, and there is a tremendous amount of hype, and there is also a great amount of hope as well. It really is like the true kind of dialectic. There is both hope and there is hype. I think one of the main challenges in artificial intelligence today, and I've been in AI since I was at Boehringer Ingelheim, which is maybe about 16 years ago now, is that unlike in the past when the models, the algorithms that we were building, we would have to spend a lot of time, capital resources, compute resources, people resources, and money to build something that we were kind of hoping would work, but it didn't always work well because the science wasn't as robust as it is today, and just it wasn't as kind of forthright and considered as we have it things are today. And our biggest fear really was that we'd spend all this time and money and effort and it just wouldn't work.
Yeah.
That's what I always kind of was concerned about as a leader in the business and doing data science and analytics. Now, fast forward 15, 16 years, our fears have kind of shifted. We still have fears, but they're not the same fears. The fears now, I think more people, show up at conferences or, in the halls of, biopharmaceutical companies, med tech companies, med device companies, digital therapeutics companies. People say things more like they kind of know that AI is here. They know that it's going to change their lives, kind of rock their world, so to speak. But they're in many cases terrified. They're not kind of rushing out to give a nice warm hug to the incoming AI. They're truly scared and anxious that when AI comes, it's going to come and kind of push them out of role. That they don't know what's going to be left for them when AI kind of transforms their organization. So, and I think that's a relatively new phenomenon. In the 16 years that I was doing AI, the first 14 years, a lot of it was like really kind of nervous anticipation that the models wouldn't even work well enough to do what we said they were doing. Now, just in the last 2 years, there's a lot of fear and kind of concern out there in the world about they are going to do what they're going to do, and when they do it, it's going to be so horrific that people don't know kind of what to make of it. So I think that and we have to just call that out as it is. I think to say anything other than that is just disingenuous, and it doesn't do a service to the people that are working in our businesses, in medical affairs, in life sciences, that are there to really help people that have a number of conditions that need improvement. So that's the first thing. There is like a real kind of psychological concern and a real anxiety about what's coming, and if we don't call it out as it is, it's just not honest. The second big thing I think is that a lot of teams that are progressing forward an agenda or a strategy with artificial intelligence today, many of them aren't coming from a kind of origin or a foundation with data science like I did, or the other teams have started. They're kind of like coming at it like they saw ChatGPT late 2022. They maybe have some apps that they use in their personal life, or they have something that got stood up internally within their company, like a co-pilot or like a ChatGPT that's been branded for their own company. And like this is the majority of their exposure to AI. And as a result, like they're kind of like being kind of forced into transformation, but they haven't really been given chapters 1, 2, 3, and 4. They're just like starting on chapter 5, and it's like, how did I get here? Like, what's the reason why we're doing this? How is it going to help me as a employee? What is it going to do for my customers who are either HCPs or patients or investigators? Like, why is this helping the organization? How is it going to help improve human health? And I think it would be really prudent for leaders that are listening to this and others that are kind of engaging in the content to think that it's probably helpful that not everyone is starting from the same page, if you will. And even if the business is starting from a place where they totally recognize that they have to transform with AI, that there might be people in the business that are showing up and they just have picked up the book. They don't even realize what the book is or why it matters or why it matters today. And I think just taking kind of a reasoned approach to kind of crawl, walk, run, like do a little bit first, get some experience, understand where there's value before just jumping into chapter 5 and just assuming that everyone's there right away is not going to necessarily be the most helpful. Because if you just kind of progress forward as if everyone's aligned and find that some people are still, kind of late night weekends trying to read chapters 2 through 4 while you're still on chapter 6, it just leaves a lot of people like scratching their head, not really understanding why you're progressing forward or kind of how to do the things that are necessary. and it leads to why some of these large projects fail, why there's burnout, why there's continued concerns in the business of just not getting the engagement that we desire.
Very beautifully put. And recently I attended the MAPS Summit 2024, and we touched upon these. And I'm so glad that we are again in this platform talking and touching on those aspects. Fear of adoption, fear of not knowing, like you said, the company or the organization has started from chapter 6 and you don't even know chapter 1 to 5. These are very real concerns that you're highlighting. So quickly I would like to ask, do you have any solutions for those, or do you want to just quickly give some tips to the leaders who are facing this right
Yeah,
at
I
the
mean,
moment?
yeah, no, I think I've said this before, and I'll say it again. I think there's no substitute for experience in the AI arena. I think there definitely is a strong kind of thought that the people within our businesses need to understand kind of what we're doing and why we're doing it and how to do it before they can actually engage in platforms in a meaningful way. I definitely agree with that, but we have to also recognize that if we spend too much time kind of teaching people about the what, that is like how things work and what it
Mhm.
is and the rest, that it can sometimes have a deleterious effect. That we spend a lot of time on teaching people how to do prompt engineering or teaching them about like what the platforms are or what they're capable of, and we don't give them actual hands-on experience with the actual platforms that exist today, whether they're proprietary platforms or off-the-shelf platforms or just things that they can find off the internet. It can really have a negative effect on actual people's intentions, their self-efficacy, their motivation, and people then get this like strong kind of fear, if you will, that there's all this capability that the technology has, and then as individual MSLs or as medical writers or as strategists or as people within the business, that something's going to change for them, but it's not
Mhm.
quite palpable. They don't know what it is, and no one's saying anything. Like no one in the leadership is saying like that's not true. Like you're still valued to us. We really care about you, and they're not hearing anything. All they just hear these like continued discussions about why the technology is so great, but no one's saying hey Bob, hey Bill, hey Mary, you're great. They don't hear that. So as a result, people get like really frustrated, and then as a result, lots of bad things happen. So I think you have to really have a balanced view. There has to be like a duty of care, if you will, that the organization places first and foremost on their employees, on their staff, on their medical experts, their professionals who are for the most part doctorally trained as clinicians, as experts, and treat them first and foremost as the lifeblood of the business, and give them a thought of how do you amplify your own potential using the tools we have available. And then once you've kind of gotten to the point of either this is fantastic or this is really frustrating, and that's you need to kind of get both those feelings with AI, then you can have a
Mhm.
practical discussion of why it matters to the work we're doing and how we can really make it better in the days that come. If you don't have that kind of range of emotions, it's just kind of like an inert thing that shows up on a PowerPoint slide. You're not doing it the right way.
Yeah, yeah, this is so critical. And I'm glad we are touching upon that. And coming from you, an expert, I think our viewers will really benefit from this. So we'll switch gears now. And I'm big advocate of patient voice being incorporated within medical affairs. So my question to you is, how can AI contribute to a more patient-centric approach in medical affairs?
Yeah, I mean, this is another great opportunity for artificial intelligence, especially generative artificial intelligence. At present, I think one of the challenges of historical life sciences is that while it does work for the clinical population that's been studied in research, for the clinical study population, there often are challenges with regards to generalizability or with subpopulations or additional groups that weren't studied in the original trial. Or even for in the trial, it's not often that everyone that actually supports the molecule, or if it's a device or digital therapeutic or neurotechnology, they don't have access to the people that were actually in the study. So you
Mhm.
have this kind of like vicarious understanding of what the research means to the people that actually suffer from the condition, and you have to kind of almost kind of like understand remotely, if you will, what it really means without actually talking to those folks. But in generative, there are a number of ways to kind of amplify the value of the content of the science to almost get in the mind of people that have a real condition, that have gone through a study or a research program, whether it's a clinical research program or a real world evidence program, or something else that just helps understand kind of their lived experience, their suffering. Like, for example, you can use Copilot or Gemini or ChatGPT or another platform, and just have a kind of use that platform as a thought partner, and almost kind of conduct like a little like focus group or an advisory board with the platform to kind of understand what the kind of day-to-day patient journey is like in the condition of interest. And it's not going to be a substitute for actually talking to real patients or talking to patient advocates or talking to your own patient advocacy team that interfaces with that group, but it might help kind of further contextualize that environment for someone that doesn't come into contact with patients all that often, and understand what those kind of things that frustrate that person's real life actually are, as well as what could potentially make their life more meaningful, what's actually facilitating their experience on a more day-to-day basis, or point you to research that has actually proven helpful that your company has conducted or that other companies have done, that is useful for discussing with peers or with patients or with professionals out in the space. So it's kind of like a stimulus, if you will, for future discussion. I've seen teams use that initial thought partnership in generative as kind of like a preamble to going into like a patient advisory board, or going into a discussion with an actual patient advocacy team or a patient advocacy group, so that they feel like more kind of educated and engaged with the discussion itself. I know that also generative is also now being used as a way to kind of build up personas, or kind of understand from patient perspectives why certain patients might react certain ways to information that's presented to them. And unless you yourself happen to suffer from the condition, and given the state in the US, like it is the case that 40% of Americans have a chronic condition. A number of people have more than one. Many of us are patients ourselves in medical affairs, but unless you happen to have the exact condition you're supporting, you may not really know what the person that you're supporting is really dealing with. So generative can be really helpful in kind of thinking through what that person's experience has been with your medicine, or with a medicine that is similar to yours, or what the standard of care has been before. And just getting that understanding can almost be like a way of better aligning with the needs of your key expert or with your team before you're actually onboarding a new person. So it's a complement to the existing ecosystem.
Yeah, that really makes sense. So I want to circle back to the piece that you said, having a way of collecting data from patients who are actually in the condition and going through the treatment, and getting that voice in prior to the advisory board. It acts
Mm-hmm.
as a complementary tool to the existing advisory board that will enhance the the strategies that we make. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. I mean, that's something that's been possible for years. I remember even back the company I worked at that became AbbVie. We used to. This is really dating me, but you can tell from my gray hair, my beard, and the lack of hair in my head. We used to use these like old voice recorders, those like old recorders that would like tape those little tapes like in the actual mechanical recorder. And
Mhm.
with patient consent, they would would do these like exit interviews from clinical studies, and patients would talk about after the studies were unblinded, how they accrued value from the program. They were on placebo, they were on drug, what they experienced while they were in study, and what it meant for them. And for one of the programs I worked on, a drug that we launched in 2005, 2006, the way the drug actually got named was from an interview, that a qualitative interview that had been done with a patient that was recorded, and the patient described like how meaningful the being on drug meant for her in her life, and what it kind of was able to kind of complement that she wasn't able to experience prior to the drug kind of being part of her regimen. So there really is a tremendous amount of insight that can be captured in these types of conversations. There are other organizations I'm cognizant of now that are actively kind of supporting these conversations with the patient community, and then feeding them directly into purpose-built models like RAG trained models that enable the extraction of insight, so that they can be shared forward with commercialization teams, life sciences teams, medical affairs teams, MSLs, et cetera, that help kind of really support these conversations, either with the patient community or with other elements of the broader environment.
Truly, this is so powerful because I have myself conducted those qualitative and quantitative interviews and gathered insights. I have been part of advisory boards. So I can really see the gap that you are pointing out that AI can really fulfill. And I think the path going forward, if there is no fear and adoption is high, then really the marketing team, the medical affairs existing team, and the strategy team, the MSL team, we all will benefit so much from this insight that comes in through the AI channel. So with that, I we have to come to the last question. What advancements do you foresee in the next 5 to 10 years for AI in medical affairs?
Yeah, I mean, I think you asked a similar question when we were together last time, and I'm no better able to answer this now than I was then. And in fact, I think the window of my kind of like foresight is getting shorter. It's like I think when we talked about it last time, I could have looked out to 2031, but I was talking to a colleague who's active in the space, who does a lot of work in medical affairs strategy just recently, and she was telling me she was working on her 2025 goals, and I told her I was working on my 2031 goals. And it's really tough because when you look out, that far in the future, there's so much change, so much great, amazing change that's coming for all of us, that it's really difficult to plan forward and then interpolate back. But I think, in the next like 3 to 5 years, I think we're going to see and witness the full transformation of generative AI across the entire ecosystem, not just in medical affairs, but in life sciences and across all regulated industries. So that right now, if we're at somewhere between like 25 and 40% of teams that have adopted AI, by 2028, every team will be using generative AI, and it'll be like digital is now, or like electricity is for the average consumer. You won't even think to say AI, because everything we do, all our hardware, all our software, all our applications will be AI powered, and it'll be like so far past the kind of trough of disillusionment on the Gartner curve that it won't even be a thing. It'll just be like everything will be AI powered within the next 4 or 5 years, and I think it'll be really so much upside, so much hope and possibility for all of us that are patients. I'm a patient, to make our lives more meaningful and better. That it really be wonderful. And I think for those of us that are tuning into this program, that are listening and engaging in the space, the sooner we get experience with it, that we see how it can help make our work richer, make our lives more meaningful, the easier it is to see what that means for us in our work and our roles as well. Because I think there are just a large number of new opportunities for all of us to contribute to the world, as AI kind of like washes across our shores. So I think there are a number of new positions and other new like ways of contributing that were maybe a little bit harder to see a year and a half, 2 years ago, that are becoming more clear now today. And I think it's just really a very bright future for all of us. Of course, given the appropriate guardrails and concerns around compliance and safety and security and governance and ethics and all the rest. But I think net positive is I'm definitely more firmly in the net positive camp than I am in the concerning camp. But past 2029, 2030, which I think now is the world consensus for artificial general intelligence, it's so hard to imagine kind of what the world looks like at that point, for me at least, that I can't make a reasoned prediction. I'm sorry.
So, in the beginning, we asked a question: merging artificial intelligence with medical affairs, full of hype or full of hope? So, would you say you are on the hope side?
Yeah, I mean, I am full of hope for sure. I think there's, I wake up every day with determination to kind of progress forward the elemental vision of using AI to kind of augment mental wellness. I think there's so much upside in this space, and across healthcare and life sciences as well, for transformation with part of our business as well. But I think there is a lot of hype, and I think teams that are working with organizations need to be really disciplined, and need to be careful about who they engage with in the space, because it's very easy for someone to say that they do a thing, but it's not very easy for someone to kind of fake experience and to actually deploy a platform that actually supports the needs of an organization. And there is no substitute for experience in generative AI. You need to actually spend the time to build expertise and to know what works well for you and for your teams, your customers, your opinion leaders, the patients, and to be able to kind of understand, what works well for one group may not work well for another. And I think discerning what's hype from what's real, if you will, is a skill itself, I think, at this point. But it's a necessary skill because we don't have unlimited resources. No one does, and even as the economy improves, at least here in the states, we need to be careful with making choices that can maybe not potentially benefit everyone within our community. So I think there is a lot of hype, and there are organizations that say they have a thing, but what they have is really perhaps not as far along as people would like it to be, or what they actually have is actually not fit for purpose, excuse me. And I think we really just need to be very careful and thoughtful about partnership and engagement, and kind of whether we build or buy, and kind of what actually makes sense for our needs and for our strategies as we progress forward.
Yeah, very beautifully put. Thank you, Matt, for making this such an enriching experience for all of us.
Thank you again for having me. I really appreciate it. It's been so much fun.
Yeah, we are at the end of this session, and I think we are on a brink of an era where AI is really going to AI and automation are not just buzzwords, but they are really powerful tools that can be leveraged in multiple ways. So I urge you, you heard our guest today, I urge you, go and think about those insights, go take it back home to your team, to your organization, and talk about it. Until next time, stay tuned, stay curious, and stay engaged.